Hey, you're listening to Marketing Out Loud, a daily podcast where I share advice, stories, and insights to help you build a thriving consulting or professional services practice. To subscribe to the show, head over to marketingoutloud.fm. Are you afraid of getting people on the phone? I think if you're honest, you are petrified of talking to prospects on the phone. Many reasons why that might be. Perhaps you're afraid of coming across as some kind of a snake oil salesperson. Perhaps you are hiding from the fact that your offer is off the mark. Perhaps you are afraid of rejection and you don't really know how to handle when somebody says to you, I don't want this, or I'm not interested. And you're afraid of what kind of effect that's going to have on your self-image and your self-esteem. Perhaps you're just lazy. And it just sounds like a lot of work to talk to people on the phone or to have actual real-life conversations with other human beings. Maybe it's all of the above. But let me be the first, probably not the first, but let me be one to tell you that you are not going to make sales unless you get people into conversations. Unless you're getting people on the phone or you're having one-on-one in-person meetings, you're not going to make very many sales. I just got off the phone with somebody who is trying to do most of their selling via email and LinkedIn. And they're getting into these back and forth conversations with buyers. And the good news is that buyers are engaging in those conversations. That's great news. It's a great sign. But he's sharing pricing via email. He's sharing details about the solution via LinkedIn. And they're having this conversation. And only if the buyer is pretty much sold and wants to get started are they getting on the phone. And I said to him, you are losing so much money. You are leaving so much money on the table by not having that conversation earlier. Because it's really hard to get context via email or via LinkedIn. And it's really hard to create urgency around a problem. And it's really hard to motivate the buyer to take action via email or LinkedIn or some other digital communication. The only things that people buy online like that, or that to decide on buying online like that, are very simple purchases. Some kind of a commodity, some kind of a really simple product, some kind of a really simple service, some kind of a really simple course. But if you're selling professional services, consulting services, and by definition charging, $5,000, $10,000, $30,000, it's not going to happen online. It's not going to happen in a LinkedIn exchange or an email exchange. That might be required to get them interested and to validate that there's an opportunity, but then you got to get them on the phone. You got to get them into a direct conversation. That's where the sale begins, and that's where the sale ends. Because in that conversation, you now have an opportunity to create context, to discuss the scenario, to engage the buyer around the problem they're facing and lead them towards a solution. But if you're not doing that, you're not going to make sales. So let me suggest a mindset shift here. If you just don't want to get on the phone, you're afraid of getting on the phone, you have anxiety around that, and you're avoiding it for one reason or another. The shift here is that you don't get on the phone to sell. You get on the phone to serve. That's the shift. So if you feel like you're selling in these conversations, well, you're doing it wrong. Shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't feel like you're selling, and the prospect shouldn't feel like they're being sold to. It should feel like service. You're leading the conversation, sure. You're asking pointed questions, sure. You are guiding the conversation, sure. But all of that is with the objective of empowering the prospect, empowering the buyer, empowering the other person, the other human being on the other end of that conversation to make a smart decision, to make a good decision, and to avoid making the mistakes that they are likely to make if they don't have the conversation with you. Every time I talk to somebody on the phone, whether or not they buy, I promise you, I prevent them from making disastrous mistakes. Okay. Either through working with me for those who are ready and willing, and for those who I'm ready and willing to take on, or by just having them avoid making all kinds of mistakes that they're going to regret. And I know that they'll regret it because I've seen it happen before. Either way, you get a ton of value from a conversation with me. And I don't view that conversation as a sales conversation. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm trying to get you to make better decisions. And if that better decision is to work with me, if it makes sense for you and I have an opening and I'm willing to take you on, then that's what that means. But sometimes, actually, most of the time, it doesn't mean that. Most of the time, you're not going to work with me, either because you're not ready or I'm not going to make you an offer for whatever reason. But either way, you're going to get something really valuable out of that conversation. You're going to get clarity on the way forward for you out of that conversation. That's how you want to approach these calls. You're not selling, you're serving. You're helping them make a better decision, whether or not that means working with you. Hey, thanks for listening. Do me a favor. If you like what you hear, go on iTunes and leave us a rating and a review because it helps more people discover the show. Thanks so much.